On September 25, 2025, Assata Shakur passed away in Havana, Cuba. She was 78 years old. For decades, her name sparked fear, admiration, controversy, and debate. To law enforcement, she was a convicted cop killer and fugitive. To her supporters, she was a revolutionary icon who stood against racism and state violence. Born Joanne Deborah Byron in Queens, New York in 1947, Assata grew up in the era of segregation and civil rights struggles. She found her voice in activism, joining the Black Panther Party and later the Black Liberation Army. She embraced radical politics at a time when America was on fire with protests, police clashes, and calls for justice. Her most infamous chapter began on May 2, 1973, on the New Jersey Turnpike. State troopers stopped the car she was in. Shots rang out. When the smoke cleared, Trooper Werner Förster was dead. Her comrade Assata Shakur was dead, and Assata was critically wounded. Prosecutors claimed she fired the fatal shots. Assata argued she was shot with her hands in the air, unable to even pull a trigger. In 1977, after years of trials, mistrials, and charges, she was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison plus additional years. But her story didn't end behind bars. On November 2, 1979, with the help of allies, she escaped from prison, a daring breakout that embarrassed U.S. authorities. She vanished underground, resurfacing in Cuba in 1984, where Fidel Castro granted her political asylum. She lived in Havana, raising her daughter, writing and speaking out. Her autobiography, Assata, became a classic of revolutionary literature. The FBI labeled her a domestic terrorist, placing her on the most wanted terrorists list with a $2 million bounty. Successive U.S. governments demanded her extradition. Cuba always refused. Throughout her life in exile, she remained a symbol. Supporters saw her as a voice against oppression, a black woman who refused to bow to the system. Critics saw her as a criminal who escaped justice. Even her family ties fueled her legend. She was godmother to rapper Tupac Shakur, another figure who lived and died under a spotlight of controversy. Now, with her death, the debates intensify. Was she guilty or framed? Was she an outlaw or a freedom fighter? Did she spend her life in exile or in freedom? What cannot be denied is that Assata Shakur changed history. She lived, fought, and died on her own terms, never captured, never returned, and never silent. In death, as in life, she remains a symbol of unfinished revolution. But to understand Assata Shakur, you have to understand the Black Liberation Army, the underground organization she became most associated with. The BLA was formed in the early 1970s as an offshoot of the Black Panther Party. While the Panthers had moved toward community programs, the BLA embraced armed struggle, believing that the U.S. government was waging war on black people. Their mission was simple but radical: to fight fire with fire, to defend black communities by any means necessary. The BLA carried out dozens of actions: bank expropriations, prison breaks, and armed attacks on police, whom they viewed as occupying forces in black neighborhoods. This was the climate in which Assata lived. She was accused of being involved in several incidents, though many charges were later dropped, dismissed, or ended in acquittals. Supporters say she was targeted more for her politics than her actions. Prosecutors painted her as a dangerous symbol of black militancy. The New Jersey Turnpike shootout wasn't an isolated moment. It was part of a larger war between the state and black radical groups. The FBI's COINTELPRO program was in full effect, surveilling, infiltrating, and dismantling organizations like the Panthers and the BLA. Assata herself wrote that she lived under constant harassment, raids, and death threats. To her, survival meant resistance. To her enemies, resistance meant terrorism. Even after her escape to Cuba, the BLA's shadow followed her. In the 1980s and 1990s, American officials used her case as proof that black radical groups had aligned with foreign governments. The FBI raised her bounty to $2 million, and New Jersey law enforcement never stopped demanding her return. She became both a political pawn and a cultural symbol. The Black Liberation Army may have faded from headlines, but its legacy lived through Assata. Her writings, her speeches, and her survival gave the group's mission a face. Whether you see her as guilty or framed, fugitive or freedom fighter, her connection to the BLA ensured that she would never be forgotten. When Assata Shakur died in 2025, she didn't just close the chapter of one woman's story. She closed a chapter of America's history of struggle, rebellion, and unfinished revolution. Her life forces us to ask the hardest question of all. Who defines a revolutionary, the people or the state? This is OC Street Files, Assata Shakur. Remember her name.